my background is in education. It's what I studied as an undergraduate. I was a high school teacher. It's what I did for my master's and what I'm doing for my doctorate. I think about education a lot in a very broad sense. And I do think of this as an educational process. I think of it as, in the broad sense, as trying to helping people change their minds and change their attitudes and change their behaviors towards ones that we like more is an educational process in my view. And I think that when people say that, and I've certainly had my days when I'm like, I don't want to be the person to have this discussion with you. Like, I have this discussion a lot. I don't have to be the spokesperson for all gay men in the world today. Thank you very much. You can just fuck off and leave me alone, and I don't have to be, because there is a situation where sometimes you feel like just because you happen to be the gay guy, or I'm sure it's the same if you're, or similar, not the same, but if you're a person of color or a woman in some room, then suddenly you're the responsible. You educate us about this, please, now. And it's like, actually, no. But in the long term, barring days when I really would like not to do it, that is the task, right? That's the task for society. That's what we're sort of engaged in. It's one of the reasons why I do things like sing with gay choruses and speak with gay speakers bureaus and things, because I see that as part of the process of educating people. And I think you're right in the sense that simply on a basic psychological level, it's very easy to lose people when you're talking about things which, as you say, suggest that they might have been and still be doing harmful things to others, often to people that they love, right? Often you might be saying, well, the way you treat women, i.e. your girlfriend, your spouse, someone you really care about, your daughter, is really bad for certain reasons. Well, that is not an easy message to hear, and you can lose people instantly. We've all had that experience where people just shut off. They're like, oh, you're saying I'm a terrible person, I'm not going to talk to you anymore, I don't believe that. And it's just possible that they even are a terrible person, although I find that I meet very few genuinely terrible human beings. But even in that case, you still haven't changed their behavior if they give up and leave. And I think that it's a constant tension between the desire and the necessity of strongly criticizing and being firm to your values and saying, this is not acceptable, I will not be treated this way, and you shouldn't treat other people this way, and being strategic and saying, how am I really going to make this message stick? And sometimes that feels like a compromise. It feels like I'm going to bite my tongue on some of the things I really wish I could say, because in the long game I think this will work better. And no, that's really difficult to do, and I think that you have to do that in a principled way. But I think it's the same sort of discussions that the atheist movement as a whole has around things like billboards and how they refer to religious people in books and blogs and things like that. If the goal is really to change people's minds in the long term, my view has always been that we sometimes need to say things differently now than we otherwise might want to say it. And I know that feels to people like you're saying, well, shut up, I wish to muzzle you for some future purpose that's often poorly defined. But I mean, I see it as trying to be intelligently strategic. But then there's this whole argument about multiple voices and having many different ways of doing it, and I think that's valid. I try and restrict the extent to which I criticize other people for the way that they communicate. So, because as I always think, well, okay, yeah, they might not have said this message in the way that I would have said it, but it's more important. The injustice they're fighting is bigger than the problem with their message. So I always try and keep it in perspective. But